Success was due to some unsung heroes, and I want to mention one today in particular because he testified recently in the Capitol. Wally Barron is our Secretary of the Department of General Services from Frackville up in Schuylkill County. Anybody from Schuylkill County here today? All right, you're good folks. Wally, I asked to mount a statewide effort to deal with cost cutting. If there's one thing you're going to hear from political candidates, we're going to cut costs. We're going to cut the fat out. We're going to reduce the expenditures in government. Well, Wally took that seriously, and he mounted an effort over 8 years that reduced costs by some $6 billion. That's the equivalent of $2 million a day, every day, during 8 years. Compare that to the data last week that showed 3/4 of all Americans believe that federal tax dollars are wasted rather than spent wisely. And I still, as I have throughout my public career, must ask why the disciplines imposed on every state government by a constitutionally mandated balanced budget with separate treatment of capital and current expenditures and a line item veto for the chief executive isn't the answer to our current federal problems and the responsible reduction of our outrageous $1.5 trillion annual deficits. Fourth, we should reaffirm our belief in the importance of state and local governments as the proven laboratories of democracy, in contrast to the notion that all of the wisdom of this great country resides in Washington, D.C. Loud applause. I spent a great deal of my time recently in Washington, D.C., and I'm here to tell you that just ain't so. In truth, we must still believe that government closest to the people, state governments and local governments, the folks who guide us on a day-to-day basis, are generally best positioned to make the wisest decisions for all the people. And still viable is that notion of the state and local governments as laboratories of democracy. They can generate innovative ideas and new solutions to old problems for emulation beyond their borders, and even in some cases in the nation's capital itself. History teaches us that many of our most productive changes have come about in just such a fashion. Fifth and finally, I suggest that we must constantly strive to achieve a proper balance of toughness on the one hand and compassion on the other. By toughness, I mean making it very difficult on terrorists and armed criminals throughout the world by cracking down as hard as we can and throwing the book at them. Those of us who've been prosecutors know the importance of carrying forward that mission at every level of government. It also means we have to vigorously pursue fraud, waste, and corruption within government, and in the private sector as well. A particular concern in our Commonwealth today, you know, is the need for greater transparency and accountability of those whom we elect to public office. We simply cannot abide the resurrection of a reputation for this state as one which condones fraud, bribery, extortion, misuse of public funds, and other official wrongdoing of the type which plagued us in the 1970s and threatened to be. But we must also believe in compassion. And by that I mean in extending aid, as this nation always does, to those who are beset by natural or other disasters. And we've had more than our share of them this year. And I'm proud that our country, whatever party is in office, is making the effort to help those folks. We also have to help those at home who are trapped, literally, by social, economic, or personal circumstances which are beyond their control, in ways that are designed to break rather than perpetuate the tragic cycle of dependency on government. These are worthwhile and achievable goals. On a partisan basis, you know, of course, that I've been a Republican all my life and continue to take a great interest in my party's fortunes. Our party took a pretty good shellacking in the last presidential campaign, And the hand-wringers, the finger-pointers, and the crepe hangers were out in force in its immediate aftermath. But I'm reminded, and some of you may even recall this, that my own entry into politics was prompted by a similar reversal in 1964, when our presidential candidate, Barry Goldwater, was overwhelmed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, and the Democrats ran up huge majorities all over the country and in both houses of Congress. And yet, 4 years later, we elected a Republican president. Can it happen again? Of course it can. It can if we're true to our principles and enlist good men and good women to our cause. This is the type of change that our country is really about. We must remember, and I remind you, that politics is not a spectator sport. And to preserve our freedom, we must exercise it constantly and wisely. Recent electoral triumphs in Virginia, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, all of which went Republican this year after going Democrat in 2008, indicate clearly that even the most redoubtable Democratic strongholds can be made vulnerable to well-thought-out, substantive, and well-financed campaigns. And this week we learned from Democratic political consultants themselves that their party's stands, and those of the president, on major issues today command the support of only a minority of Americans. I'm delighted to share these thoughts with you, and I commend the Pennsylvania Leadership Council in your efforts to promote free and open discussion of today's issues, and for the role that you play in the quest to fulfill the promise of Pennsylvania in these United States. Your presence here today is evidence of the fact that there are Pennsylvanians that care about the future of this Commonwealth and of our nation. And I'm proud to be here with you and wish all of you who are running for office this year well, great success, which will redound to the benefit of our Commonwealth. Thank you very much.